Welcome to the Virtual Career Lounge, helping you become a greater you. I'm your host, Darius Carlo. I'm a program coordinator here with Love Our Youth. This lounge is designed to help middle and high school students prepare for life after high school. We have a saying that we really love to say is failing to plan is planning to fail. I do want to give a special shout out to EXL, who sponsors the Career Lounge. EXL is a leading data analytics and digital operations and solutions company, and you can learn more about EXL at exlservice.com. Because of their support, we are able to provide all of these tools to you free of charge. A little bit about who Love Our Youth is. Love Our Youth is a local 501c3 nonprofit organization providing programs for youth. Our mission is to leverage the power of collaboration to uplift, empower youth, their families within our communities. With that being said, today we have a great topic. We're going to be looking at interview skills, and I just want our panel of guests to introduce themselves.
My name is Ashley Hood. I'm a recruiter here at EXL. It's a pleasure being here with everybody today, so I look forward to our conversation.
Hi, and I'm Linda Poor. I am a Senior Assistant Vice President of Human Resources at EXL. Have spent a long career in HR, and so I'm looking forward to the conversation today.
Yes, and again, I'm Darius. I am a program coordinator over our middle school and high school teen lounge, and also all of our summer programming that we do, or out of school programming for our younger kids as well. So I do a little bit of both. But this, I was talking to Ashley offline. This is a topic that our high school kids need. Sometimes they don't recognize it till a little bit later after they've done their first interview. So we're going to dive right in. I think today is going to be some really good information. Where I want to start, and I think it's good to start from the beginning for all of us, was what was your first job interview like? And did you prepare for it? How did you prepare for it? Did you just wing it? So how was that?
I know for my personal experience, my first job interview was definitely, I think, a challenge. Definitely did not prepare as much as I probably should have, and everything. So first job interview was with like a retail with Target and everything. So got asked a lot of questions, was kind of not prepared for the questions they asked. So that was a little, not reassuring, didn't walk away with a great warm fuzzy feeling with that. So definitely wish I would have had something like this more available to kind of take that experience and put it towards, working, using my skills as a student and everything, and kind of applying those to the questions that they asked and everything. So.
And for me, my first job interview experience was actually with a local restaurant. Not anything anybody would recognize. It was local to where I lived. And I was a little prepared only because I had been looking, much different than today's environment where there are a lot of roles open for younger. At the time I was a student, I was just barely 16. And there wasn't a lot of opportunity available. And I had already had a couple of scenarios where I applied but didn't get an interview, and had friends who had applied and interviewed other places who kind of shared a little bit of what that looked like. So I had a little bit of insight going in, but it was still stressful and definitely challenged me and caused me to think, much like Ashley, that I wished I had been a little bit more prepared.
That's good. And stress, maybe some anxiety goes along with interviewing. It's
Yes.
just the way that it is. But before we get into like maybe some good interview questions or how to answer certain things, before you even start there, how important do you believe researching the company that you're interviewing should be for a teenager today?
Extremely important, knowing the company and their values that they present, and making sure it's a cultural fit is extremely important for students today and everything. You want to make sure you're going to a company that has some of the same beliefs culturally and has a really good environment that you want to grow in. If it's a company that is not, then it might not be a good fit.
Hmm.
And I would echo all of that and add as well. I think it also gives you as a candidate a leg up when you have done at least a little bit of looking into a company because you can show that you invested some time that sets you apart and says, I really am interested in this role and this company. And I want everybody to know that. And you can demonstrate that with questions you ask if you've done a little bit of research. And it helps the employer know that you're really committed and that you really want the role.
That's awesome. And these are all good things to, especially now in the age where we have access to so much information, is looking up the company's core values. Like Ashley mentioned, make sure it's a good fit. If you don't like what they stand for, maybe that's not the job for you. So this is a great entryway. Now you're there. What should you do to make a good impression when you walk into the door?
And I actually have a real live recent example. I literally talked to a hiring manager yesterday about an interview that she had. And the individual, it was a video interview, which are much more common today,
Mhm.
particularly in your first interview or with companies that are larger global companies. So that's not uncommon. And you need to be as prepared, if not more prepared, for a video interview as you are for when you walk in the door. But her reaction, it was an individual who showed up to an interview in a hoodie. And her reaction was like, I just couldn't get over the fact that they would think so little of how they came across professionally to show up to an interview in a hoodie. So it starts with your first impression, makes a huge impact and can override everything you say. And that first impression is going to be a combination of how you choose from an appearance perspective to present yourself, as well as what your initial statement is to that manager, how you greet them. Do you have a good, concise 1 or 2 minute intro of who you are and what you're looking for? Those things are critical to your interview.
That's good.
Nope, absolutely. And I even add to, like Linda mentioned, the appearance is a big thing, standing up straight, being presentable and everything. The old saying, dress for success, is always a really good example to go by and everything as well. So,
So far we've done research, right? Before we went to the interview process, we're in the door or we've made it out of the waiting room and into the virtual interview session. One, I think this is great advice. I'm going to add this into my training is no hoodie. We're going to have no hoodie rule. And then secondly is practice your little intro 1 or 2 minutes to say, hey, I am this person and a little bit about yourself. So we have those, at least a little bit of a foundation. Um, when we look at that, how can teams, especially, develop some strong answers to common interview questions? And you both are in HR, you're both in recruiting. And maybe we can start with what are some of the common interview questions, and then maybe go into some good answers to that.
So I think common interview questions I think you'll find are things that are very job related. So they typically an interview is going to start out with a question that says, "Tell me a little bit about why you're interested in the job," or something that we would typically call a soft question, or something that's easy, should be perceived as easy to put you at ease and make you feel a little bit more comfortable in the experience. If you're prepared, that should be a soft question because you should know like what's the role you're applying for and why you think it's good for you. If you're not prepared, it could start off rough. From there, I think the questions become more focused on specific skills with that job. Things like, tell me about a time when you've had to multitask, or tell me about a time when you've had to be really organized, or tell me about a time when you have been overwhelmed, had more deliverables than you could handle. Tell me about a situation where you've had to handle an individual who was really upset, if it's a customer service type job. So you have to look at what are the skills of the job and assume that people are going to ask you for situations where you have used or demonstrated those skills. And that use doesn't have to be in a work experience, particularly for an entry level job, like most of you are going to be looking for right out of high school. It can be and should be related to other experiences you've had, either on a sports team or in an extracurricular activity. Like, look for those opportunities and make sure, again, part of that planning is what are the key skills based on the job description, and what are times that I've demonstrated that skill? Did I have a conflict with a teacher or a difference of opinion on a grade where I had to actually think about why, do a little research, present my case, and then what was the outcome? So think about what's the situation, what did I do, and then what was the outcome? Because those will be the types of questions you'll get asked.
That's good.
Yep, absolutely. And I'd even do, like, just to add on to Linda's, what she said too, is, relate your school projects and everything that you've done. If you've been a team lead on a school project, that shows that you have, some leadership expectations and everything, or your sports and everything, what you do with those. And just any kind of problem solving skills that you do in your everyday life. Those are always great talking points whenever you don't have any experience. It just shows, it gives some insight into the person that's doing the interview and everything, of how you operate and everything, and just be honest and everything. So, and don't panic, take those deep breaths whenever you do get asked a hard question, and everything. Take that couple seconds to pause and really think about your answer and everything. So.
I want to add one more thing before we leave this question, because I think it's so key. A lot of times, students only think about that interview when they're out of school or when they're looking for that job. And I think what Ashley just talked about, and even a little bit about what I said in terms of planning for the interview, so much of it is about as you're in school, don't just go to school and go home, right? Take opportunities to get involved in extracurricular activities. Make it your goal to be in a leadership role in something, to take some accountability, to lead a fundraiser, or lead an activity, or be a captain of a team, or whatever your interest area is, and try to make those experiences and interest areas as diverse as possible. Don't make it all about sports, but have some sports elements and some other types of maybe volunteer work, or whatever things interest you. Try to explore as many interests as you can and be as involved and as diverse as you can, because it will give you the most experiences that you can draw on and the most skills that you can bring to roles that will make you much more attractive to employers.
The education is one thing, but I think what Linda is mentioning is that it's what you do outside of that that counts. That's what sets you apart, because many will say, well, I have a 3.8 GPA. But not many may say that I'm a captain on my sports team. I work at the local church. I volunteer here. I do this. So those things help you especially when you're going through your first job interviews, that you can put down even as a resume to say, hey, these are some of the skills that I have, and then prepare yourself to be able to talk to them. Another thing that, remember, Ashley and Linda are HR professionals, recruiters. They've interviewed people. She said it is okay to pause and take a deep breath. I know sometimes our nerves can get the better of us. but that from somebody that this is what they do is letting you know it is okay to say you don't even have to say anything. You just take a moment, grab your thoughts together. You don't have to answer right away, and you can just take your time so that you can make sure that you're answering it the best way that you can. Is there any other advice that you could give when you're walking into an interview or through the interview process that maybe you wish you would have known even as you made it through your career and interviewing even later in life? What are some of the things that maybe they could hear from you guys as some good advice?
I think one of the things we haven't specifically spoken about yet, but I think is good advice in the interview, is make sure, we talked about having the right appearance as you come into the interview, but even throughout the interview, make sure that you make good eye contact and you stay engaged in the conversation. You don't want to look like you're wandering off looking at something different or half asleep. Or even we have actually had scenarios where people call in from another work location, like they're trying to work while they're interviewing for another job, which is insane, right? You want a quiet place where you're uninterrupted if you're on a virtual interview, that you can be really focused. And those skills of being interactive in that conversation are really critical throughout the process. And then after the interview, I think that continues where if you're really interested in the role, make sure you send a thank you note. Make sure if you haven't heard back in a week that you follow up with the individual and say, hey, I'm still really interested. Can you give me some idea about what the timing might look like? Now, sometimes it takes a little bit longer in a company to make a decision. So be patient, but don't lose heart. Don't feel like, okay, I should just give up, or I followed up once and I'm not going to follow up again. Don't do it too frequent, but every week or two until you have a yes or no answer is fine to follow up and is something you should do because it shows your interest.
Yep. And even to add to Linda what she just said too, if you're doing a face-to-face interview, make sure your body language is good. Don't be fiddling with things. I know nerves sometimes come into play and everything. Make sure you have that good body language and you do that eye contact and everything. And try not to have any get distracted by what's going around. There might be a place they're taking you into a back office or something like that, and there's people going in and out. Try to ignore that and just really focus on who's talking to you, their questions, and how you're answering and everything. And like I said, sit up straight. Don't fiddle with anything in your pockets or anything like that. Don't have gum in your mouth. Simple little things like that are good. I know I've done a lot of virtual interviews and everything too. And even face-to-face ones and stuff like that. The virtual ones, sometimes, if you have family members that are in the house too, like Linda said, go and have a quiet place, shut those doors and everything, make sure everyone's quiet, make sure everyone knows in the house that, hey, do not disturb me for this amount of time and everything. So.
No, that's good. And I love the backgrounds that you guys have now because we see the books and very nice. And then we also see a virtual background. So if you are going to have a virtual background, let it not be crazy. Let it not be something that's out there. You shouldn't have, like, I have a background that I have with friends that's kind of like space and alien themed. That is not the best background for a job interview. Now, as we've discussed, we've talked about body language, sitting up straight, eye contact. How important is using professional language in a job interview?
That is a critical piece and everything. So I know with a lot of the interviews that I do and everything, using those buzzwords and the skill sets that you're looking for, whether that's SQL or any kind of buzzwords that they have, whether it's a technical job role or even an entry level one, being able to speak to those skills and apply those to say, I've used this on, this type of project is great. It segues into their questions and everything. Definitely want to always use those keywords and those buzzwords of what they're looking for. It does help bring your point across that you are qualified for the position.
So
Yes.
don't use crazy language that you normally would use with your friends.
Right. To be very professional, don't be rude or anything like that. So just have a normal conversation, but, a respectful conversation.
And make sure you articulate well. Like, you don't want to use slang. Kind of what you just said. It's not you're not sitting around in the background chatting with a friend. You're trying to demonstrate that you have some real skills and values that you can bring to a company to help them be successful. So you want to make sure the language you choose fits that you're talking about the skills of the job, that when you speak, you're speaking in full sentences, you're clearly articulating. You're not doing the, yeah, I kind of did that one day and it was sort of like. You want to make sure that you've really thought through your answers and that you can clearly articulate.
Yes, I think that's so important. And I know sometimes our emotions can get the better of us, but if we can maintain an opportunity to be able to take a moment to think, make sure that what we're saying is relevant. Um, as Ashley mentioned, as you've done research already, remember, before you get into the door, you've already done research. You know some of the core values. She used terms, at least in corporate industry, like buzzwords, things that are important to your job, that you're going for, and knowing those words and then using those words as you continue on, going through the process. Then again, having a good introduction, whether it's hey, my name is Darius. I am, and then giving a little spiel about 1 or 2 minutes about who you are when you're going through it, either in live or in person. Maintaining that you're sitting up, good eye contact, we've discussed. Of course, the famous #1 rule that Linda has created for all interviews is no hoodie. Make sure that you're dressed well, your hair's done, makeup is done, all of those things. Be honest. Even if you don't have the answer, you can say, well, I just started. This is my first job or my second job, and I don't really have an answer to that question. And then think about the different skills you have, whether it's another language, whether it's you are on a sports team, you're volunteering, all of those things help. And then Linda shared something that is so important that I think is key is follow-up. What will set you apart also is not how well you've done, but then also following up so that you can find out the yes or no. Don't overdo it, but just maybe once a week, call up and do that. Now, one thing that I can tell you that can hinder you is social media and your social media presence. Guys, what should our teenage and maybe if some young adults that are watching this selves are candidates, how careful should they be, even on LinkedIn, but even any other social media platforms?
This is a huge one, because what every student out there needs to understand, and I tell my own kids, because I have kids in this age range of junior high and high school, everything you put on the internet is there forever. It's there forever. Everybody can see it, and you will be evaluated based on what you put there. So you should never put anything derogatory on any of your social media. Be very, very, very cautious, because managers and leaders and companies, they do review your social platforms. And if you are saying inappropriate things, if you are posting inappropriate things, that is going to impact you, not only in your ability to get a job, but it can also have an impact on whether or not you keep a job. Because if you post the wrong things, it can create issues and, in fact, termination with a job that you currently have. So please be careful. We tend to think in this generation, because you guys live on your phones and live on iPads, that you can just say anything because that's how you communicate. It's much more done through chats and social media than it is through telephone calls or things of that nature that have been typical in the past. But it is, you got to remember, everybody can see it and it will haunt you.
That's really good. I know some of the young kids watching, because I've heard some of even my own teenagers that are part of our programming here. Well, it's my private life. It's my own business. Why do they care? And I think they that companies want you to not only represent yourself well, but because you, in this case, you work for EXL. EXL is a large global, not just national, you're talking about international platform. So even the things that a vice president, assistant manager, whoever it is says can directly and be derogatory to the company that they work for. So I think it's so important that we're careful on what we post. Yes, it's your private life, but your private life was made public when you posted it on Instagram, Facebook, or anything else. So I think it's something that is so key, that in this age that social media is everything, that we be careful on what we post and how we post and what we say and how we say it. I think that's so important. Is there anything else you would like to add, Ashley? Is there something you would like to add to that social media?
No, absolutely. I mean, that's great talking points and everything. So you post it out there, it's public information now. You know, you definitely want to be careful what you do. I know as a recruiter, we look at a lot of social media, especially LinkedIn accounts and everything. You know, some basic tips I can give you on if you're creating a LinkedIn account, those are professional accounts that you're going to create for social media. A lot of businesses look at those. That's a first impression. So make sure you're having a really nice professional photo and everything on there if you choose to have a photo. Also, make sure you're including and have updated skills and everything on your resume and everything on that. So those are going to be key highlights and stuff. Make sure you're using those buzzwords like we talked about earlier to draw companies into your profile and everything. And make sure you also have, there's a setting in LinkedIn and everything where you can go and say, I'm available for work. Have that on if you're looking for work and everything currently right now. That lets recruiters know you're interested in work right now and everything. If you don't have that on, you know, people are going to assume that you're currently working and everything. So, but just having a very clean and even getting endorsements and everything, like whether that's from your teachers or, you know, your volunteer work and everything like that, talking points about to what skills you have and everything, and basically kind of doing a talk up about you. It's kind of like a reference on LinkedIn and everything. Those are keys as well. You know, those go a long way as well because it kind of shows your work ethic. But definitely, just like, you know, everyone said, definitely you put it out there on social media and everything, it's there. It's public information, you know, for anyone to look at. So be mindful of what you're putting out there and everything. So it's definitely not good idea to put anything that you don't want to come back on you.
You know, I want to chime in after that and just say I think Ashley added a great point there. There's definitely a warning of, like, be cautious about what's out there, but there's also that positive element of it can really help support you if you're doing the right things on social media, particularly on LinkedIn, where it is considered more of a professional network and experience. And the other thing I wanted to add, just because it's a little bit of a side note, and often probably students particularly never think about it, is that there are a lot of jobs out there for various reasons now that require background checks for you to be able to work for an employer. EXL is one of those. And it's really, really, really important that you make wise decisions because the things that you do or don't do in your personal life can actually have an impact about your ability to be hired, because of laws that require background checks to ensure that the safety of information or the safety of patients or the safety of clients or the safety of people's money. So, financial services industries, healthcare industries, a lot of retail industries. There are many industries that will require a background check and a successful completion of that check for you to even be eligible to be hired.
That's so good. It's not even on a question that I have here, but the decision you make today can directly affect your tomorrow. Yes, you can make it past it. Now, the thing that you may want to do, like if you want to be in the armed forces, maybe an arrest is not, it's not good for you to have on you. So thinking about those kind of things beforehand and saying, well, I want to be in government, so what does that look like? And understanding those things and then making good decisions. There's one thing that I want to do before I dive into some more fun questions is, how do you deal with rejection after an interview?
So I this is one where it's always hard. It's always going to be hard because you really wanted the job, hopefully, that you applied for.
Yeah.
But the way you've got to think about a job and looking for a job is much like any kind of sales interaction. So if you think about it, right? If you go out shopping, there are people out there who are trying to sell you something in every retail store. There sometimes are people actually actively out there soliciting, saying, do you want this or do you want this, or handing out coupons. It's a sales process. And in a sales process, you always have to have a certain number of contacts and connections to get to an actual sale and conversations. So you think about your job interview the same way. You have to look at a certain number of roles that will funnel into a certain number that you actually qualify for and can apply for. And once you apply, then it funnels down to the number you actually get to talk to somebody. And from those, it funnels down to the job you actually find. You got to look at it as a process that takes time. And it's all about a numbers game. It's a number of contacts. You got to start big to funnel down to the one. And every rejection you get, especially if you can get somebody to give you feedback, gives you insight on how to be better ready for the next job, for the job that does become yours, because you hear something about a skill you needed, or maybe something that you have the skill but you didn't present it very well. Look at those rejections as a process to get you to where you are going to be for that final job.
That's good.
No, absolutely and stuff. I'd say too, you're gonna, when you're going and doing your first job and everything, it's okay to feel that disappointment and everything. Give yourself a moment to digest that and everything. A lot of times I'll get feedback from candidates, even in new candidates and everything that are still pretty young in their careers and everything, asking for feedback. Reach out to that person and doing that thank you note. You got that rejection and everything. You have that contact point now. Ask, be like, you really like learning about this job and everything. Can you share any feedback on my interview performance, or, that I could use for future opportunities? Asking that question will sometimes help show that you're still interested in the organization. This might not just be the right fit for you, but as a recruiter, it lets me know, hey, they're really interested in everything. What else do I possibly have that I can find for them that's going to be a good fit? It may not be this particular role, but what else can I reach out to other colleagues or other recruiting teams and stuff and see what we have and pass the resume along? So it kind of helps with your networking and everything too within an organization. So it's really good to kind of do that as another step and everything. And it helps you learn what you did wrong and everything. So you can learn from that experience. So
That was really, really good advice. So today we have discussed, one, do your research before you even go into the door. Do your research, understand the company's core values, understand, like Ashley mentioned, is it even a good fit for you? If it's not a good fit for you, maybe it's better to look for something else. And then we heard no hoodie rule. Linda's no hoodie rule. Please do not wear a hoodie to your job interview, whether in person or virtual. Have good language, a good introduction, good eye contact is important. Your hair done, makeup if you wear it. Just make sure that you have yourself there. Don't look like you're falling asleep or bored. Please, we didn't discuss this, but leave the phone. Leave it in your pocket. Do not answer a phone call or text message during the interview process. That's just free advice. It wasn't it wasn't solicited, but I'll throw it out there. Again, when you're answering questions, be honest. Use the skills that you have. Like we both, Linda and Ashley, I mentioned. If you're in sports team and you're a leader on the sports team, mention it. A volunteer, if you're a project lead for something for science or for English, use those things and add that on there. And then use those situations that you have throughout the interview. It does not always have to be my last job, I did this. And no, but it may be when they say, tell me a time. Well, I was volunteering at a local veterinary hospital, and use that experience to your questions and answers. Then again is follow-up. We heard follow-up is key. Shoot a thank you email, both Ashley and Linda. Remember, these are HR professionals. These are the ones that are behind the scenes that see this stuff happening. Send them a thank you. Thank you for reaching out to me. It was really a pleasure. And then even if you don't get the job, there could be opportunities because you followed up to there. And then the last thing, and it wasn't said, but it was said, was don't give up. Just because you don't get this first job is not the end of the world. We've all felt that way. And if we could tell our 15 or 16-year-old self about our first interview, that's probably something that we would share with them, is saying, don't give up. There's more opportunities. There's new things that are available there. So this was awesome conversation and really good practical stuff, guys. The young kids that are listening today, this is stuff that I'm hoping you're taking notes, because these were very practical rules. Now, some just more fun questions. One is, what is your go-to comfort meal?
Go-to comfort meal. I'd have to say like grilled cheese and tomato soups for me. So
So I would say my go-to comfort meal is not much of a meal. It's probably sweets. Like a hard, awful day deserves ice cream.
Amen. I agree with that. There's some days where ice cream is important.
Yes.
What would you rather prefer, tea or coffee, or nothing?
I'm a tea drinker, so I can't do coffee. So
And I'm probably more a coffee drinker.
Okay. Yes, I'm not a big tea drinker myself. I am a coffee drinker. It's just something that, you know what, for me, it's comforting. A nice warm cup of coffee or hot cup of coffee. And I live in Florida, and sometimes I have to have coffee outside. It does cause a little bit of perspiration, but it's unbelievable. And then the last question I'll ask, on a rainy day, you're not at work, what do you like to do? What's your favorite thing to do?
On a cold, rainy day, I probably would choose, if I had a choice, to cuddle up in a blanket and watch a movie.
I was gonna say I do the same thing with that or with a book. So it's one of the two.
I hear that. And just in Florida, we do get a lot of rain. And when it's dark out, I could use a good nap. You know, that weather just gets you in that mode, whether it's on the couch with your legs up, your feet up, and you're just watching a good movie, or taking a nap or reading a good book. All of those things are really, really awesome. Well, I want to just take time to say thank you, Ashley and Linda. This was unbelievable conversation. I know that our teens that are watching are going to grab so much practical and valuable tools from this. Thank you guys for being a part of our Career Lounge session. Again, another special shout out to EXL, who's a leading data analytics and digital operations and solutions company. You can learn more about EXL at exlservice.com. Thanks to their support, we are able to provide this to you free of charge. We look forward to seeing you at our next Career Lounge sessions. And all of these sessions are made available on our YouTube channel. So go there, smash the like button, hit the subscribe button so that you can be made aware of every time some new content is made available to you. Thank you again for joining us and have a good day.